All right, welcome to another episode of I Guess I'll Do It with Pat House, where I talk to comedians and all sorts of creative people about their early days and what got them into the nonsense we do. Today's guest is actually one of my oldest friends in comedy, and I'm not even just saying that. We literally met when I was like 2 months in, and I had been on stage only, 7 or 8 times. He is a comedian, TV writer. We will get into all of that. But today, my guest, very good friend of mine, very funny comic, Chantry. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Pat. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Nice to meet you. So I always like to start off my podcast of where I met my guest. And you and we met at a bar at 12th and Sansom called Finn McCool's, an Irish pub. I had been
owned by a Greek man.
Owned by a Greek man, correct. I believe... one of his daughters, we'll get into that a little bit later on. That's a weird roundabout story. But anyway, so I had been doing stand-up for 2 months, but only getting on stage like once a week, which was every Wednesday at the Laugh House in Philadelphia. And I get home from Christmas break, and I Google, and like the internet was still, Googling was still brand new in like 2004. And then I found out about an open mic at a bar called Finn McCool's, and I thought that sounded like the coolest thing in the entire world. I was like, oh my God, I get to do a stand-up set on a Monday now. So I called, and there was no open mic that Monday. I'm like, God damn it. So I call like the next Monday, there was no open mic. I swear to you, it took 3 or 4 Mondays of me calling about this open mic, and it finally had one. And I went there, and I met you, Johnny Goodtimes, and Philly comic legend Craig Wolfgang that night.
Craig Wolfgang.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. This was in his days of doing that. I just saw
we
Craig
were the staples.
recently.
We were the staples once I started rolling there every week. I don't mean not to include myself in that like with an ego, but I'm saying like every time I went, it was the three of us.
Yep.
Steve Reese was there. But I remember that first night there. I remember us standing at the bar. We introduced ourselves, and I said I've been doing it for a little while at the Laugh House, and we got to talking, and then you told me about the comedy cabarets. Do you remember this meeting at all? Because I remember it 100%.
I mean, I definitely remember you and I hanging out at the bar at Finn McCool's. I can't remember if it was like the first night, but we spent so many nights there. So yeah, definitely. I remember.
I think I remembered so well because it was my first night doing Philly stand-up or seeing it not at the Laugh House. So like my mind was blown, essentially.
Right. Yeah. And I think my my recollection of it is because you were 19, I guess.
I was still 19 at the time.
And like, I felt like I was young because I was probably like 24, something like that. But then it was like, oh, geez, this kid's got 5 years on me.
Yeah. And then shortly after that, fucking Blake rolls in like a real asshole.
15, I think.
Yeah.
Joey Doherty. Yeah. And
yeah.
You went back to how you did the Laugh House on Wednesdays, and I was in the world of the comedy cabaret.
Yeah.
Back in Philly, that was the thing. Because we're talking early, mid-2000s. There was almost no comedy. I mean, really in the country, but it was in that dead zone after the boom of the 80s and 90s. There was nothing. And in the city of Philadelphia,
we did not have helium yet. For the listeners, we did not have. You will hear every comic on every podcast mention helium. That chain did not even exist yet.
No. So they came around in like 05, 06. There was no Philly Improv Theater. There was no any of these other. Honestly, I think the only open mics to be spoken of in the Philadelphia area specifically for stand-up in that era there was 2 of them. There was the Comedy Cabaret in Northeast Philly, and there was the Laugh House on South Street.
Both on Wednesday.
Both on Wednesday. So you couldn't do both. So you literally, it was one night a week, and you had to choose between the 2. So it's not even like you could do two in the same night. So you basically got one open mic a week. And that's a big reason why me and Dan Goodman, who's a New York comic now, and Johnny Goodtimes, we had taken that class and could get too far ahead of me, but we took a class and Johnny found that and he was like, let's start a show. We need to make our own things. It was very DIY because there was literally nothing else. So it wasn't like, I tell a lot of younger comics now, it's like, if you're not getting booked, make your own thing, make your own show. But we weren't getting booked because there was literally nothing going on. So we had to make our own thing. And we booked Finn McCool's as a show. It was a stand-up showcase that we hosted for, I guess a couple of months, and we realized nobody was showing up. And then we're just like, let's just make it an open mic. And then that's when comics would regularly come out and hang out. So it literally gave us, I was like, oh my God, I get to do 2 open mics a week now.
Well, I will say this. I was one of those weirdos where I had a car when I was in college on Temple's campus. So if I went on early at the Laugh House, I would leave the stage immediately and go right to the cabaret. So I did manage to
So you
double
could
down
make
a
that.
couple times.
Yeah.
And then in later years, not early on, in later years, you could triple up and then come back and do Abilene for Danny Ozark late night spot and do
That's
3
right.
on a Wednesday.
As long as you don't get lost on the bridge to New Jersey on the way home and never show up again.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that couple that just?
Oh yeah. Oh no, they were missing at Abilene, and I believe that was a Wednesday night.
That was a Wednesday night. Yeah, I think they were hanging out. We might have even been on that show. But there's
a good possibility.
There was a young couple, for the listener. There was this young couple from New Jersey. I believe this is a story. They just right over the bridge in New Jersey. They came over the bridge. They were hanging out on South Street. They were hanging out at Abilene, the one bar that doubled as an open mic sometimes, and they just disappeared. And I don't think it ever got solved, or they ever found
to this day
bodies. They're just gone, and they never came back. And honestly,
some people have all the luck.
Look at what we're doing now. I know.
Yeah, talking about them on a podcast. But okay, so the city of Philadelphia did not have much going on. I will say the Laugh House, it was a black room, but they had an open mic, they had a showcase, and they had headliners every weekend. May not have been the biggest names, but Dom Herrera would do every Thanksgiving weekend. And I remember when I first started, I saw like Bill Burr, Wendy Williams, Kevin Hart there. So it still was a club. It just wasn't on the map. But to your token about the comedy cabaret, there was several when I first started. There was like Doylestown, the Northeast, Runnymede, New Jersey. So there seemed to be more comedy. Cherry Hill, yeah. Elephant and Castle, yeah.
Yep.
There seemed to be more comedy in the suburbs than in the city, and you blew my mind with that because I never heard of the comedy cabaret, and you told me, it was either a week or two after we met, you told me about Runnymede, and I drove over there, and that's where I met like Chris Schlotterer and saw some other people, and I was like, holy shit, there's more comedy in the area. And then I found out there were more of those rooms, and then I asked about Doylestown, I asked about Cherry Hill, and those that first 6 months, my mind was like exploding with all this new information.
Oh, God.
I didn't even know it existed in Philadelphia. I had no clue.
Yeah, and so you really had to look for it. And then once you got into that, and then you got further out, there were Steve Bix gigs, if you remember Bix.
I do. Pickle Man.
Crazy Pickle Man. I don't think I ever did a Pickle Man gig.
That was I did not, but I heard the name forever. And then
there was the Garbers. Do you remember the Garbers?
Spaghetti Factory.
The Spaghetti Warehouse or Spaghetti Factory.
Which is now Union Transfer.
Yeah, which I never did. I remember they tried to book me one time and I wasn't available. And then I always wanted, it was that mythical show that just this old couple ran.
I did it once, and I literally just bombed at an Italian restaurant.
Sure.
And that's my only real recollection of it.
Yeah.
So let's go back to your early days, because if I recall, your first stand-up set wasn't at a stand-up show. You kind of had something a little bit off the beaten path here. Actually, sorry, I'm going to take myself further back. What was your interest like in not just stand-up, but in comedy in general when you were young? Because most people that do stand-up, you just realize shit that's funny at a very young age. And whether you know what stand-up is or comedy, you have a keen awareness of it at a very young age. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I always think about like, what were my early influences? Like, what was I thinking about? And honestly, it was just, and I'm sure I know your family a little bit too. And it was just like, especially with my dad and his friends, they were just always just busting each other's balls. Like it was like, I never heard my dad and his friends be nice to each other. They were very good friends, but it was and it was always sarcastic, and they're just always busting each other's balls. And in my family, it was the same way. My uncles and that whole thing was just like, you're always making fun of each other in a loving way, but that was how you communicated, you know, like
that's love, that's friendship.
Right. So you have to, in order to honestly to communicate in my larger family, that was kind of how it was dealt with. And even little things, like I was a very shy, anxious kid growing up, as a lot of comedians were. And there was a lot of, anytime, but especially back in the 80s, there was a lot of really bad shit in the news, from I mean, we can go through the whole list of remember Move in Philadelphia, the Challenger explosion, Bud Dwyer, like all those, like terrible things.
Bernie gets.
Yeah, like just terrible, terrible things. And it was like the way that I learned to process it would be like this terrible thing was on the news. This guy literally shot himself on live TV. And that's a horrible thing for like an 8 or a 9-year-old to process. And
Did you watch it live?
Yeah, I was home from school that day. We were home from.
I remember because it was a snow day for the Philadelphia area.
So I saw it live, and you're just horrified. But then your dad comes home, and you hear him talking on the phone to his friends, and they're already telling jokes about it. They're like the Challenger exploded, and it's like, what does NASA stand for? Blah blah blah. So it was like that's how, and like you would see all these scary things. It was like, what's my defense mechanism? Instead of like sitting up and thinking about it, it was like, oh, if you just make fun of a terrible thing, it's not as scary. So that was definitely a defense mechanism for me. And then, like, if I look back at, honestly, it's a dumb show, but really shaped me was You Can't Do That on Television. If you remember.
Oh, God, yeah, absolutely.
I still remember being like 5 years old for the first time. I mean, you have cable TV. It's this kids station, Nickelodeon. And then it was just like these like weird Canadian kids that seemed to be shooting in a basement. And they were being tortured, and there was a firing squad, and there was a drunk, abusive dad, but it was funny and for kids. And it was like, so it was just so irreverent. But it was like, oh, this is how I can do this. Like, this is hilarious. And then honestly, it was, you and I are both huge music fans. I was a big MTV kid. I watched MTV constantly, but I knew, like, from the time I was 6 years old, that I was never going to be cool enough to be on MTV. Like, I was never going to be a rock star. Like, I wasn't cool like that. But then Remote Control came along. The Remote Control, the game show, Ken Ober, just this dorky looking dude, Ken Ober in his basement with Colin Quinn, Adam Sandler, absolutely. Dennis Leary were on that show. Yeah. And it was just these goofy guys on MTV being stupid in the funniest way. And I was like, oh, I can do that. And then right after that, MTV's half-hour comedy hour came on. And that was like the gates opened up. I was like, I used to videotape that every show. My brother and I watched every episode of MTV's half-hour comedy hour just on a loop. And then it was like, the Caroline's Comedy Hour, the A&E Spotlight, the A-List, like all of in the late 80s, early 90s, all of those half-hour comedy shows where you'd see like 3 or 4 comics each doing 5 minutes. And I memorized their sets. I
did too. And the MTV one was a very forgotten show because this was the tail end of the comedy boom. And I remember that was on, but I don't think that one lasted too long. But VH Comedy One Spotlight was on.
Yeah. Yep.
That's where I first saw like Rosie O'Donnell and Margaret Cho.
Yep. Yeah. Bobby, what's his name? Bobby, he hosted it for a while. Bobby Collins.
Bob. Okay.
He hosted it for a while. Yeah. And like, that was the thing
is
too.
Is he
like,
the pit bull of comedy, or is that Bobby Slayton?
Bobby Slayton. Yeah.
I have to, I get them confused in my mind. I always have to stop and think.
And like the thing was, like with me, I saw it because it was, again, you go back to You Can't Do That on Television, Remote Control. It was like on MTV's half-hour comedy hour, Geechee Guy, Drake Sather, Dana Gould, Norm Macdonald, The Amazing Jonathan, all these weirdos. And I was like, they looked like me grown up. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, like these just kind of nerdy guys being really,
you're like, that's me.
Funny. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I could do this. And even like during that boom, when I was little, like, not to take anything away from them, but like, I was the big comedy nerd growing up, and all my friends, they were kind of into comedy, but they loved, like, for example, Eddie Murphy. And like, not to take anything away from Eddie Murphy, but like, it just wasn't, I knew that just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, it was, and Raw, Delirious, which were some of the biggest specials of all time. But I even saw that, and like, I've never been a huge Seinfeld guy or like anything, just because it was just so big. And like Eddie Murphy I thought he was hilarious, but he was a rock star. He's wearing that leather suit, and it wasn't a comedy show. It was a concert, and it's this thousands of people, and it was this huge spectacle. And it was like, oh, that's not my thing. Like, I want the weird nerdy guy in the basement. Like that.
Yes.
That's funny to me.
And this is where you and I almost share the same brain when it comes to stand up. But I agree. Like, there's Seinfeld, there's Chris Rock, there's Eddie Murphy, there's Larry the Cable Guy, and Kevin Hart. But when people ask me my favorite comics, I say Greg Fitzsimmons, Laurie Kilmartin, Chad Daniels, those Jackie
Yep.
Cation.
Yep.
Those are
David
the comics
James.
to me that are my David James. Those are my heroes. I mean,
Yeah.
those people that paved the way that are mega celebrities have done so much cool shit and have done a great job putting stand up on the map. But I find that the comics I love and my true home are the people that are in your local comedy clubs on the weekend, and the shows might not even be sold out. Those are my heroes.
Exactly. And those are the ones like, and they're doing some, and again, not again, Eddie Murphy. And I loved Eddie Murphy movies. I love Eddie Murphy on SNL, all that. And like, obviously Seinfeld is who he is, a brilliant joke writer and performer, but it was just, when you see those things, they're just so big. And it just, well, I was like, this is not what I'm looking for.
So how did you come into your first set? What was the transition between, did you ever have any inkling that you would do stand up?
Yeah. But
or were you just interested?
I loved it and I wanted to do it. And there was a running joke with my dad and I when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. Whenever we would be somewhere and there's like a microphone, like wherever it is, like there'd be like, we'd be at some sort of like, I don't know, like church function. And there's like, in like the basement, and there's like, somebody's going to give a speech, or let my dad be like, oh, why don't you go up and tell some jokes? Or like, oh, go up and tell some jokes. Like that was like my thing. Right. And then I always loved to write, and I was a big theater nerd in like middle school and high school, and I did theater, and that's where I found my people. And it was like, I got to do plays and musicals, but like, I also got to like hang out backstage and like joke around with like these other theater nerds that like, I was like, oh, these are my people,
Yeah.
But then it was like, how do I get, and I was like, oh, I could, and I was always the funny kid in high school. I was always like, even in college, like, I was in a fraternity, and like I was always the funny guy. Like at meetings, like I'd make fun of everybody, or like what
Class
like,
clown or quietly.
Quietly. I was a good student, and I was always afraid of getting in trouble. But like I could be goofy. I was like, here's what I was in all the honors classes and like the AP classes and all that stuff. So I was always in that top class, but like I was the class clown of that class. You know what I mean? Like, so it came, like I was a smart kid, and like I usually did well in school. But like by the time I was in high school, I was like Mr. Extracurricular. I was in like every club, and I did, played some sports, and I did all the theater and music stuff. So like that was my thing. And then I was like, oh, I can be charming and be funny and kind of like get by, and people think I'm, like it would be like, you'd have to do some report on some book, and everybody would write like a 10-page report, but you could pick a thing to do. And I'd be like, oh, I'll skim the book and then give a presentation and be funny. And the teacher would be like, give him an A. Like that was how I got through. So, but then it was like, I was like, you can't be a stand-up comedian. That's not a job. You can't go to school for that. How do you do that? So I kind of forgot about it as much as I loved it. And then like all through college, I kind of forgot about it. And then my brother was in a band, and I still remember the first night right across the street from Finn McCool's, Fergie's Pub.
Yep.
They took me, and I was kind of like lost. I was teaching at the time. I was probably 23 something. I was a brand new teacher. I was teaching fourth grade. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't really have like friends that I was super close with. Like I had my high school and college friends, but I never even felt that super close to them. And I was just bored in a rut. I'm like, what can I do? And they took me upstairs at Fergie's Pub at 12th and Sansom in Philly to the music open mic. And I still remember like the night I had driven back from Maine that day. You've been to Maine with me.
Oh yeah.
Right?
We've vacationed there many times.
Shout
out to Sea Dog, best blueberry beer on the planet.
That's right. It's great. It's beautiful. I was exhausted. I drove home that day, and I was with some friends, and they just like annoyed me the whole week. It was like the one time I was in Maine that I didn't really enjoy myself. And I was just like, and my brother was like, come to this open mic, just come hang out with us. We're playing. And I was like, fine. And the minute I walked upstairs, I was like, oh, these are my people. Like it was just these really creative, cool people. They were 99% musicians. They were so good. Some of them were funny. Like they did like, like funny songs. And I was like, and really for the next like 2 years, my only goal, I didn't even think about comedy. I was like, I just want to be a part of this scene somehow. That would like, it wasn't like, oh, I want to be famous. It was like, I just want to for these guys to know who I am and contribute some way. I'm not a good musician. I can play a couple of chords on the guitar, but I'm not good at that. But like, what can I do? And then finally, my brother's band, they knew I was funny. I was always hanging out and like making jokes and everything. They booked me to open for them on a Saturday night at Fergie's without telling me. And they just booked me. And then 2 weeks beforehand,
blindsided. I love it.
They're like, we know you've been writing jokes, which I had this like secret notebook where I'd like write funny ideas. And they're like, you're going to do 10 minutes before it. And so I was like, all right. And again, you know how this works, Pat. Upstairs at Fergie's, it's a small room. It holds like 60 people maybe, and it was packed to the gills. I knew probably 80-90% of the people there were like friends and family and things like that. So it was a home crowd. It was like but like I remember so vividly throwing out that first joke and then getting that wave of laughter back. And I was just like, it was just like something broke in me that moment.
What was the joke?
You know what? I think I kind of like roasted the band. So I was like making fun of the band.
There's no better segue to start your career than by like making fun of the obvious, because you get like an easy laugh and then that smooths it over. You know what I mean?
Actually, wait. Give me two. Can you give me 2 seconds? I don't know if you can edit this out or not. Literally 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I have something amazing for you. Hold on.
Okay. I trust where this is going. At this point, we'll take a break here in the show and give a shout out to whatever future tow company gets me on the side of the road here. Upcoming dates. I will be at Good Nights at Raleigh in North Carolina this next weekend, the 28th to the 30th. I'll be with Dan Cummins, very good friend of mine. It's going to be a great show. It's the last weekend for that club. So if you're in the North Carolina area, this is the one to come on out to. Thanks, Chip. I needed to plug my dates, so thank you for leaving.
Good. And you know,
actually, could you leave for longer and I'll plug my whole calendar?
Yeah, you just keep going. By the way, I'm disappointing you now. I think it's away in a box somewhere.
That's fine.
I still have the set list from my first show.
That's
from the first time I got on stage. Half of the stuff, it's like, you know, it was like, I think I had jokes about the Amish, like Catholic priest jokes. There was a joke that I did. It was my big closer. And this is okay. I don't want to get canceled for this, but and again, I don't do this joke anymore, but like this was almost 20 years ago and I thought it was hilarious. I had a joke about little people. I don't know if you remember this. And
I do. I think I know exactly what you're going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course I used the word midget, which it's terrible, but I was like, oh, this is funny. And it was about like different size coffins. And, you know, if a little person in your family died, you'd have like a little coffin. And it was like this whole thing. And that was my big closer. Man, what a swing for that. And, you know, of course people laughed. Yeah. But that first set was just like, I just remember, like, I can picture some of my friends and family, like where they were in the room and like just that visceral memory of like that first wave hitting me. And then it was great. I did 10 minutes and I fucking murdered. My buddy Casey Parker was, who owns a bunch of bars now in the city. He was bartending there and I got off stage. There wasn't even a stage back then at Fergie's. It was just the floor. And I walked over to the bar after my set and he was like, dude, I didn't know you're a comic. How long have you been doing this?
You're like, 10 minutes.
The first time he's like, no way. And I basically drank for free for the rest of the night. And then I did the worst thing a comedian could do is I rested on those laurels for months. For like, I remember the next night I went to a party with some of my old high school friends. Like my one buddy from high school was having a party and I just got wasted and I was just an asshole and I was just like loud. I was being funny, but I was just I'm like, I get people because people heard that I was a comic. Some of them had come out. They're like, he was so funny, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I was loud. I was just like obnoxious to people. And I was just like, I was done with this. And then I was too afraid to go on stage again. Cause I was like, well, I did it once. And so if I do it again, I bomb, like I can't have that happen. So I have to ride this for as long as I could. And it was like another 3 or 4 months until I did my first like open mic.
Okay.
That was at Comedy Cabaret.
Did you Google that? How'd you find out about it? Because I don't know, maybe my time frame is off, but I feel like Google was like relatively new or it certainly wasn't as good as it is now. But
Yeah, it wasn't as good as it was, but like
or maybe
I'm
I even like Ask Jeeves. I don't know what the fuck I did. I just
yeah,
googled.
yeah. There was definitely it was definitely a search engine of something, and I guess I looked it up and I found out that there was an open mic somehow, and it was during spring break, so I was off for the week from school from teaching, and I went with like I did another mistake. I brought like 5 of my buddies with me, and Eric Roth was the host. He used to host back then. Hilarious, Eric Roth.
I was just going to ask who was there that we still know now.
The first guy, the 2 that popped up, you actually brought up one of them, Chris Schlautterer, who was hilarious.
Yes.
And
we still quote him. You and I will just text each
sure.
other his jokes every now and then. And I haven't seen the dude in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that's not a car. That's a sin against God. Yeah.
It's based on a pulley system.
Based on a pulley system. Chris Schlautterer. Him and Chris Morganti, who's doing like a character that night. And then a guy named Jackie Gigabyte, who was this like character. He was like this computer nerd, a.k.a. Mr. John Kensel. Was on there. And so I saw these guys and I was just like, wow. And I was like, this is amazing. And it's like, again, it's like, oh, other guys who do what I do. And then I think I had like a half decent set. I'm sure it was terrible, but like I had like 5 friends there. They laughed. And I think I got a couple laughs from some people. So I did that. I waited another couple of months and then did a spot, open mic, like said it, open mic at the Laugh House. I showed up. The Wid was hosting. I remember I ran into Joe DeRosa that night, who I had met a few times when I was in college because I had dated a friend of his when I was in college. It was like a high school friend of his. So like we had hung out once or twice before we did comedy. And it was very mediocre from what I remember. And then I think I waited another couple of months and did like another show with my brother's band at Fergie's. And then
so you really dragged it out.
I really that first year I don't really count because I got on stage maybe 4 times that whole year.
But that's still enough. I mean, you dragged it out, but you still got on stage. It was still in the back of your mind.
Oh, definitely. And it was also like in the front of my mind too, because I was telling everybody, I was like, oh, well, I'm a stand-up comedian. That was like a thing. And like of course everybody wanted to talk about it. So the following year, this is a little over a year after I did my first set, I saw, again, I'm sure I Googled it or whatever, and I saw that the Comedy Cabaret was doing stand-up comedy classes. And I was like, I got to be serious about this. I got to take this class. Joey Callahan was the instructor, and it was every Wednesday night for 6 weeks for 2 hours. It was from 6 to 8 p.m. And it was Wednesdays. So after the class was over at 8:30, the open mic started. And Joey had said, he's like, look, the people who do on this class are the ones who stick around and do the open mic. And I had done a couple of mics, so I already had like a leg up. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stick around and do the mic. And the class was great. And I learned a lot from it. I had amazing people in my class, Johnny Goodtimes, Dan Goodman, PD Kelly, Josh Bennett. You know, there was a lot of good guys in my class.
Josh had a lot of funny stuff, man.
Really funny stuff. And I also forced myself I was like, I'm going to go to the open mic. So instead of waiting 4 months between shows, for 6 weeks, I got on stage every Wednesday night, and literally there was no looking back. Like, it was just like, I broke up with a girl that I was dating. I lost like all my friends, and I was just like, this is all I'm doing now. I'm totally focused on.
Oh yeah. I was in the exact same boat, man. Once the wheels came off, it was game over. It's not a pun either on my car today, but that was you and I have had a very similar career trajectory in a way, because like you and I both hosted a lot at the same time, and then we started featuring a lot at the same time. Then we started getting occasional headlining work. You and I have had pretty similar paths, and I don't think there's any other comic I've run shit by more than you. Did I phrase that correctly?
Oh, no.
More shit by than you.
Run more shit by. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were. Well, I mean, first of all, we lived together for a little while.
We did. We did a good amount of mushrooms that summer. Can I say it?
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We can.
We did.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Also, that was we would do shrooms and then watch Wonder Shows, which is the show I want to come back to now that I'm 10 years older. But also, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. You're the only person I can discuss strangers with candy with. I have it up here. I have the DVDs up here on my shelf. I don't think anybody even knows what that show is, and you and I can quote every episode.
One of the funniest shows of all time.
I think it's, in my opinion, might be the funniest fucking show of all time.
I think
so many people, even comics, don't even know about it.
Yeah, it was
Dude,
way ahead of its time. It was hilarious. It was so well done. Stephen Colbert, Amy
dude, and Stephen
Sedaris.
Colbert looks like a baby in it
Yeah,
when you go back and watch now.
yeah. And again, by the way, that's my favorite type of show because it felt like it wasn't it wasn't Friends, it wasn't Seinfeld. It was this show that looked like it was shot in some backwoods somewhere, like sort to a certain extent low production value
Oh,
and like
very,
just
but
like different weird. And I was
a
like, this is exactly what I want.
a very different weird, but they're pumping jokes out every 5 seconds and
Yeah.
jokes in ways you don't even know. Because they could be having a conversation in the hallway, like a teacher and a student, but there's two posters on the wall in the hallway that have funny shit on them. So you have to
Yeah.
be so in tune to everything about that show. It's fucking absolutely brilliant.
And it's just its own world. Like it's, they wrote it and made it as every episode was basically an after school special. But that was
Absolutely.
teaching the wrong message. So it was just like this upside down world that was so funny. My God.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So going back to what I just said, you and I always bounced ideas off each other. We've probably bounced hundreds, if not thousands, of ideas off each other.
Yeah.
Bounce something off me now. What are you working on today? You said you have a show tonight, right?
I do have a show tonight, and
Are you throwing anything brand new out there?
Yeah, I am. I worked. I threw something out. I forget what show I was at, but I did a show. I think it was just basically just an open mic, or it was a small show. But I'm going to try it for the second time tonight. And I didn't even really flesh it out. I just decided I've been trying to do this more of just like, I have a concept. Let me get on stage and just see what happens rather than writing it all out.
Which is the way I kind of fully operate more now. I'm like 75% doing that as opposed to writing something out and getting the word down. I trust myself a lot more now to just throw it to the breeze.
Right. Yeah. And that's
which took 15 years to get to.
Oh God, and I think that was another thing that you and I did too, because like you and I think we're joke writers, and we wanted to do so well, and we were so focused on it, and we overthought it so much. If we would have just slapped ourselves and just been like, knock it off, just go have fun, I think it would have been a lot easier for us.
Very true.
We just got so in the weeds. And
let me tag on to that real quick before you get to your new idea, because Dave Attell is one of my favorite comics, and he's machine gun, rapid fire, stand-up style, but he does a different show every show. He rarely does the same joke twice. And I remember talking to him years ago, and then he's like, yeah, who wants to do the same joke the same way twice? And I'm like, that's all I do.
Yeah, I know. And you have to change it up, and that's what I'm trying to do more, even again 15 years in.
But it takes a long time to get that level of comfort, because we still rely on our words and want to do well, so we go in with a game plan. But also, shit is so much more fun when it's more freeing and loose. And I've learned to, like, all right, I'll get to the punchline. It might be a little extra wordy. I'm not going to ramble because I'm cognizant of the rambling, but I trust myself now getting to it quicker with less of like writing verbatim what I want to say.
And for years, so many people told me, Mary Rudzinski was in the same boat. We always told us, they're like, you're actually so much funnier when you're off stage. Like you're kind of meaner, and you're just loose, and you're just not as like, because I always try to be like, oh, I want to be likable and I want people to like me. And it's like, just knock that off when you're on stage. Just go up and do your thing. And it was, so I'm, especially post-pandemic, I'm really trying to do that more.
Then you get the real fans, because you're being yourself. They're like, oh, I like that guy for who he is, or I don't like that guy. And either way, it's fucking fine.
And I think I've hidden behind my jokes for so long of like, oh, I'm a good writer and I can write jokes. It's like, I just got to be me up there. And that's, it's more about emotion. I mean, you look at anything anymore, politics, anything, it's never about facts. It's never about what's actually being said. It's the way it's said. It's the emotion. And so it's like, if you can get to the heart of the emotion of something, it's way people are going to relate to that way more.
Absolutely. All right. So what are you throwing out there tonight?
All right. So here's the idea. Growing up, and I think I'm especially of the time, like in the 80s, 90s, our parents and the people, the adults around us, just exposed us to the worst things in the world, and just really messed up our brains. But they did it with the best of intentions. Like they did it they thought they were helping, and they weren't at all. This is a 100% true story. When I was 7 years old, a guy in my hometown murdered his family, shot his wife and his 2 kids, murdered his whole family. And it was all over the news. It was in the newspaper.
A great setup. I'm on board already.
Right. Hilarious already. Okay. Murdered his wife and his 2 kids. And I was 7 years old. It was in the newspaper. It was everywhere on the news. that night I had a nightmare about that. And the next day, I think it was my dad or my uncle, somebody, I was like nervous about it. And they could tell, and they literally said, they were trying to be nice. I think it was my uncle goes, "Oh, you don't have to worry about him. They're sending him to the electric chair."
He's
And
just compounding the nightmare.
Then, yeah, he explained to me what the electric chair was. And I've been having nightmares ever since. Like you can sort of get past, like it's very, it's sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, just like, it's sort of obtuse or like just abstract of like, oh, a guy murdered his family. You hear that. But then if you say it's a chair that they strap you to and electrocute you until you're dead, that's way scarier than somebody getting murdered. Like way scarier than 3 people getting murdered. And I remember it was even on the news that night. Like they showed a picture of the electric chair, and I was like, this is so much more horrifying than 3 people getting murdered. I'm so afraid of this. And I've been fucked up ever since. And so there's that piece of it. And then I had this idea for a while ago that was like very silly, but I think could fit into this, where it's like, I obviously they don't really do the electric chair that much, or most it's like lethal injection. Although there was like a firing squad recently that was supposed to happen, I think a stay of execution. But I think that like they get their last meal and they get to choose their last meal.
Oh yes,
I think they should be able to choose how they die, because like who better to figure out a way to kill somebody than a murderer themselves? Like, let them come up with something good. Like, let them be creative. Like, let some flair out.
Drawn and quartered.
Yeah, drawn and quartered. Just like whatever it is. Like toaster in the bathtub. Like, just like whatever. Like, make it fun.
That's the electric chair for pussies.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the electric bed. So let them do that. So that's my general idea right there.
You can take this if you want it. I did a joke 10 or 12 years ago about your last meal on death row, because they get to pick and choose and they get whatever they want. There's got to be some guy who's like, you know what? I'm not hungry. I'm going to die in 7 hours. Believe it or not, guys, not much of an appetite right now.
I've been thinking about that for years because I'm obsessed with that. Because there's all articles
fried chicken and ice cream. You're like, guys, I'm in a different headspace right now.
My tummy tums bother me. I've been thinking about that, Pat, ever since I was a kid and I found out about it. I was like, I wouldn't be hungry. I would be too scared. I wouldn't be able to eat.
I did that about 10 or 12 years ago, and it did very so. It would have been funnier in a larger chunk. So by all means, it's yours if you want it, because
thank you.
That's been
because I've had that thought for it's who's
oh man, now that you mention it, I'm starving. I would love 2 burgers from Zach's, and
it's like, oh, I got these leftovers. Can I get a doggy bag?
Yeah.
For tomorrow? And then they get really sad.
I know we'll have 2 ice cream sundaes, one for me, one for the executioner.
Yeah. Just can we get something can we get a sharing? 2 straws.
That's really funny, man. You definitely have to text me and let me know how that goes.
Yeah,
because it's such a funny premise too. Like just making a horrible situation way more graphic and worse.
Yeah. Oh, and if I can run one more, you want a twofer? You want one more?
Let's do a twofer. I'm sure I have a twofer in me for my story. So
I got this one too. I tried this once too. I got to work on this. And this literally happened last week. True story.
That's what I like. The stuff that just happened. Yeah. That's what I'm focusing on more and more. So I already like that this just happened last week.
Last week, this totally happened. I was on Amazon browsing, looking for a new backpack. So the other day I was on Amazon shopping for a new backpack, and I think I'm in a militia now. Like, I think I am, because if you go online looking to buy a backpack, like any kind of like hiking gear, it goes from 0 to January 6th, like really quickly, just like super fast. It's like, are you ready? It's like, I'm looking for backpacks and you're like reading about it. It's like, are you ready for the end times? It's like, I just want to carry my stuff, man. Like, it's like, are you ready for the tactical, event? If you're like, are you going to be the pride of your country, your race? And it's like, I just want to go hiking with my wife. Can I please do that? I
just want to make sure there's a water bottle attachment on the side.
Yeah. I don't need to, Yeah, I'm not going to overthrow anything. I literally just want to take my laptop on a plane. Like that's literally all I need.
That's funny, and I'm being totally honest. I didn't know what you meant when you said 0 to January 6th right away. So once you started explaining it, I got it.
Okay,
because you said the word tactical and stuff. I thought you were talking like delivery dates. I'm like, no, that sounds pretty quick.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. No,
I'm not. That's a great way to phrase it.
It was, but it was like
it just took me a second to realize what you mean when you started.
But literally, and I bought a backpack, and it's a nice backpack. But like literally, and then you know how
came with a gun,
right? And yeah, just like a fake passport, and rations. But it's just like ever since then, I'm just getting these. I just see these ads on Facebook, on wherever, just about like, are you a patriot? Like, do you need these? Are you ready to defend your family? It's like I bought a backpack, dude. That's all. I literally just want to go to Hawk Mountain on a Sunday.
No bag holds more bullets.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
All right. So this is no fucking exaggeration. In the last 48 hours, I've had a flight canceled, a flight delayed. I took an overnight red eye. I bartended for 15 hours. I get in my car. I have a flat tire on the side of the road. That is all in less than 48 hours.
But you get to have a podcast with Chantry, which I mean, honestly,
dude, it's getting fucking worse.
It's just everything's going bad. You should just stay in your house. Like I think they're telling you to quarantine. I think that's what Jesus is telling you to stop it.
Probably
to stay in your house.
So Alaskan Airlines cancels my flight with no like reschedule options. It literally just said like, give us a call at your earliest convenience if you need assistance. But like, need assistance, I have to go home. Yeah, I don't live. I'm 3,000 miles away. I don't live here. So they're like, hey, just give us a little ring a ding when you get a second.
Yeah.
So I rescheduled my flight, but for 36 hours after my originally scheduled flight, because they had no other options. Because I was at a smaller market. There's less shit going on. It was a nightmare. But what happened today to me was way more funnier because I didn't realize I had a flat tire. Like I heard some rumbling, but just thought it was the road. Nothing about a flat tire was noticeable to me today until a guy beeps at me to my right, rolls down his window, and he goes, "Hey, man, you have a flat tire." And I go, "Is it bad?" And he goes, "Yeah."
Is it bad?
Well, I didn't realize how bad it was. Is it getting flat or am I on my rim? But so I make a joke. I go, the tire pressure light just came on. Funny how it says that and not flat tire. I look over, his window's already up. So I said that joke to fucking nobody.
Nobody. In this case.
So another woman honks and goes, "You have a flat tire?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know, I'm pulling over." And I know where I'm going to pull over. I have like a quarter of a mile. I just have to get there. I know I can do it.
Yeah.
So in a total, 4 people yelled and honked at me. I'm like, I know, I got it. So I pull over. I park my car with enough space for the tow truck to get me after this. And 3 separate people walked by, pointed at my tire and goes, "That sucks," and just kept walking. Like, thank you. Like, I know it sucks. You don't have to tell me that.
That's Philadelphia empathy right there. Like that's as close as you can get to it. It's not like, "Oh, sorry, do you need help?" You're just like, "You're having the worst day ever, dude," and just acknowledge it and move on.
Nobody laughed, but they were all smirking like they take some sort of sick pleasure in other people's misfortunes.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So, this is by no means a bit. This literally happened to me 90 minutes ago, but it made me laugh just me saying to that guy, "Is it bad?" He's like, "Yeah." And then just there's nothing like a Philadelphian to say, "That sucks," repeatedly.
And to have like also to not offer help, but just to point out
exactly.
They think they're being helpful just by pointing out the obvious of like, you had 4 people like, "You got a flat tire, dude." Like they're pointing out the obvious to you just over and over again.
And they can't help, and I don't need their help. Like, I'm getting a tow truck from my mechanic, so I don't need to jack it up and put the donut on. I don't need their help, but there's something funny about just pointing out something shitty is happening to somebody.
Of course.
And then just letting it hang there.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
So, to top this day off, after this podcast is over, we are going to have to get a motherfucking tow truck.
I'm sorry, buddy.
That's fine. So, something I've noticed about your stand-up, you always, and I'm not making fun of you, you always had your set list folded into thirds.
Yes.
On the stool. What is the logic behind that?
I think it's And again, by the way, and I've been doing this
Because
for years.
I'm only asking because I love getting into the method of people's madness. I love looking into Comics Notebook and seeing how fucking crazy they are.
Yeah.
So that's part of your method, and that's pure curiosity.
So first of all, I always perform better when I don't use a note card, right?
Oh, 100%. We all do.
But 9 times out of 10, I'll just throw it on the stool because I'm a baby and I need to stop doing that. But you become, it just, I don't know, like it's way more freeing when I don't have it. But yeah, I usually have, so literally since my first set, and I have the box somewhere. I think it's like hidden somewhere, but I literally have basically every single set I've ever done. I have thousands of these 4x6 index cards. And the way I do it is like, I always just did it the same way where I just fold it into thirds. So it's like 3 columns. And so it's just chronological. It's just like, it's just a bullet list of like, I'm going to do these. And like, I'm just a visual learner, like, so visual things. So like I can look at a card instead of like one long bullet list of like 20 things. It's like, I just break that up into 3 columns. So it's like, I just go down the left column and then the middle column and then the right column. So it's basically just one long list of like, this is the order that I want to do. But just, I start at the top of the first column, go to the bottom, and then go up the second one because I can see it better. Like I can.
So the whole thing's chronological.
So it's all chronological. Okay. So it's like, if I don't want to look down, it's like, oh, I remember that my dog joke is at the top of the second column. So it's like, I can picture it better rather than just like one long column.
Shorter chunks. I totally get that.
So it's like, okay, oh yeah, because my joke about backpacks is at the bottom of the first column, but in the top of the third column is my joke about Netflix. So I can just, it's just a visual thing. So it's like I can see the list a little, like I can remember that list a little bit better.
So you actually have all of them still from day one to right now?
Yeah, I have. I'm staring right now because I grabbed that, but I have it's like 2 or 3 shoe boxes full. Yeah.
Do you ever grab an old one, look at it, and don't know what the fuck half of it is?
All the time. I'm like literally like, I have no idea what this. It's like unicycle. No idea. Like what does that mean? Yeah,
I'm trying to remember your unicycle joke. I have this like weird autism.
Hold on a second. Give me a second.
So like I said, Good Nights in Raleigh, April 28th to the 30th, and it'll be with Dan Cummins. Last weekend of the club. It's a great club. Plug the same dates again while you were gone, asshole.
All right, thank you. I'm going back right now, and this box goes back to 2014, the end of 2014, and it's like I have jokes like some of this is like diner 5 signs, diner 5 signs. No idea what that is. Like a lot of these horse thief. I had a joke about a horse thief that I think it was really funny. No idea what.
See, I'm kind of getting annoyed at myself here because I have this I always call it like comedy autism where I remember other people's shit just as good as mine. Yeah. Like I can recall shit you were probably doing 15 years ago, but not everything. So like you're throwing some stuff out there and I'm like, I should remember these or at least know about them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I'm, church dogs. That there's a joke. Church dogs from 2000. This is from 2017. It's only 5 years ago.
This sounds like a very Chip Chantry set list. Like if someone just read to me these joke bullet points, I would pinpoint it to you first.
You could pull them out. Yeah. Here we go. Judy Bloom. This is from 2017. Let's go back a little further. 2016.
Does that box have like 0405 in it?
No, it only goes back that far. I wish I had those. Mother's Day. Oh, 97 104. Do you remember that? Jeez, that was my grandmother. It's like my grandmother died, and I remember I had all those jokes.
Go into the light.
Go into the light. Yeah, that stuff. Wow, this is crazy. Yeah, Bernie Pepsi. This is during like the 2016 election. Bernie. Oh, I think I like Bernie Sanders. This was the joke. It said Bernie Pepsi. That's all it says. Bernie Pepsi. And it was, I like Bernie Sanders. I want to vote for him because I have always wanted to have a president that probably carries around an empty bottle of Pepsi in case he's got to pee. There's something like that. It was just like, yeah, he carries an empty bottle of Pepsi in the car in case he's got to pee. Yeah.
Did you write your set list for tonight yet?
No, I've actually, I've written down a couple ideas, but like not like I want to try that backpack joke. I want to try the I'm pulling this back. You might remember I've only done it once or twice, but this happened to me a couple years ago. I was walking down the street And because I'm going to make it like it's more recent, obviously, but it happened a couple years ago. People are always asking like, "Oh, you live in Philly? Is it dangerous? Like, all the crime and everything?" It's like, no. I'm like, I live in the Italian market, like it's there. But literally, I was walking down the street and I had to walk I literally crossed the street mid block because I wanted to avoid a lady, this older lady who's just sitting on her stoop, smoking a cigarette with like a bunch of ash on it, and she was just sitting there looking off into space, loading a staple gun. She was just loading a staple gun. I was like, I don't need to be a part of whatever is happening right now. Like, this just doesn't seem, yeah.
See, I would go the opposite way. I think you should approach her and ask some questions.
Yeah. What's going on? Like, I think maybe I could, citizen's arrest.
We got to wind down here in a second, but I love asking my comedy guests. Like, I know my friends are funny. I love all my guests are funny. They're working comics. They travel. They make money as a comic. But some nights it doesn't always go your way. So, can you recall off the top of your head an absolute nightmare horror story of a show? I love asking this question.
Yeah, I had, and I think by the way, no offense to you, Pat. I feel like you have a lot of great bombing stories.
I know, I do.
Yeah. See, here's the thing. I
kind of revel in it. Like, it all sucks bombing, but as soon as the shitty set is over, I realize how funny it was, and I can't wait to tell my friends. That's all.
Right. Exactly. And like, I feel like I've bombed, trust me, but like I've
seen it.
Yeah. But like, I've always had just like mediocre. I've had so many mediocre sets,
but not even a bomb per se, just something where like the whole crowd was against you or the elements of the room weren't right and the whole thing was just a fucking disaster. Not even like your material wasn't going well, something else catastrophic that just derailed the entire.
One of the worst shows I ever did was, and you like, again, I try not to blame the crowd or whatever, but this situation was the worst thing ever. It was and it was only a couple years ago. It was 2019 maybe 2008, I think it was 2019 or 18. So it wasn't long ago. I'm not going to mention the comic's name. I don't want to give it away, but he had this gig through Magooby's in Baltimore, which I've never done Magooby's. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll try to get into that club down in Baltimore. And he was like, it's a private gig. It's this Catholic group. It's like a Saturday luncheon show. And I was like, oh, this does not sound good right off the bat. But he's like, it's $1,000 and you just got to do like 20 minutes. And I was like, okay, I need the money. I had just come back from LA while I was writing on that TV show and that job ended. So I was like, all right, I'll do this.
But for those of you listening, I'm cutting you off real quick. Sometimes when the show is way more money, it means it's going to be extra fucking worse.
Yes, exactly.
So $1,000 for 20 minutes sounds amazing, and the pay is, but that typically means this is going to be a disaster.
And it was. So I was trying to get information from the booker of like, what is this group? It's like, whatever, like, can I have some information about what's going on? So I go and, but I got nothing. I got no response. Like, it was just like one word answers. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this thing. And it's like these older Catholic couples. So it's like, I know how to be funny and nice and clean for older Catholic couples. I was recently married. I got some marriage jokes, like whatever. So I drive to Magooby's, Pat. I get there super early. I get there at like 11 a.m. It's like an hour before the show. There's nobody's in Magooby's parking lot. No, just it's a ghost town. I'm like, people should be here. Like, at least the staff, like getting ready for lunch and everything. And finally at 11:30, an assistant manager showed up and I was like, hey, do you know anything about the show? And he's like, there's no show here today. And I was like, so luckily, long story longer, he went in, found the manager's notes somehow and was like, oh, it's at this building that's like this Catholic, it wasn't a church, but like this Catholic hall. It's like 20 minutes away. So I speed over, I run in, I find the guy who's running. He's like, oh, Chip, yeah, you're here. That's great. He's like, just so you know, this is a stag event. It's only men, which that would have been nice to know. And he's like, it's this group. It's like the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick or something like that. And it was their St. Patrick's Day like luncheon. I had to sit on the dais next to the priest and like all of these other people. And then after a bunch of these speeches after lunch, I'm going to do 20 minutes. And not only was there an open bar, but there were these giant mason jars on every one of the banquet tables that these guys, and it was ages like 20s up through the 80s, of just these drunk, obnoxious Irish dudes, and like not Irish, like Irish American guys, just getting wasted. And we have like, the whatever the meal is, the traditional Irish meal. And then they start giving these speeches, and it's like 7 old guys giving speeches. Right away, nobody's listening. Just nothing. They're just talking over them. The guys in charge is kind of like yelling at them, like, guys, you have to be respectful and listen. It's 400 just drunk Irish assholes. And I have to be squeaky clean, right? And the priest was actually the nicest guy there. He was like super sweet. So finally it's my turn to go up, and I have to be super nice. And I get up there, and they just start heckling and booing me immediately. Just just right out of the gate, nothing. But I can't be mean. I can't be, dirty or anything like that. So I just try to go through it. Luckily, I'm at a lectern or whatever, like a podium. So I could at least have my notes up there and just like hide behind something. And I was just trying to like relate to them and they were just like yelling and just booing. And then I went after one guy. I was like, okay, let me have fun with them. And I went after him, and they didn't like that at all. So it wasn't even like I could play with them because they hated that. So I literally did 18 of my 20, just slunk off stage. And then like a few of the guys came up to me afterwards and was like, hey man, you were pretty good. Yeah, we always like to fuck with the comics. So, like that's what we usually do. I was like, it would have been nice to fucking know that. That would have been pleasant to know that that's all I'm here for. And then the guy, and he was a very nice guy who did it. He signed my check. I was like, at least I got $1,000. He wrote my check, but he wrote Chip Chantry instead of my legal name, even though in like every email I was like, please make the check out to my real name.
Yes,
and he was like,
yes.
He's like, oh, that's okay. He just crosses it out and writes my name on top of it. I'm like, so not only was this the worst thing ever, now I got to drive 3 hours back, and they're not going to
explain to my bank that.
Yeah. Luckily they did. They accepted it. And it was by far the worst gig that I've ever done in my life.
That is an absolute nightmare, and I'm not going to one up your story, and I'm going to roll here in a second, but I did a show for Friends of, what's it called?
St. Patrick,
Friends of St. Patrick, Friendly Sons of St. Patrick.
Sons of St. Patrick, yeah, something like that.
Okay, yeah, I can't remember. I did a show for them as well.
It should just be called the Pasty Dildos Club. That's what it is.
Yeah. Shillelaghs.
Yeah, exactly.
I did a show for them at Springfield Country Club, which is, to make things worse, 20 seconds from my parents' house. Like, it's a kickball home run away from where I was born and raised.
Yeah.
And I had Buddy Harris open for me, and he didn't do that great, but he did better than me. I was supposed to do 45, and I bailed at 27. I couldn't even go on, but they weren't even interested. And also, I had so much misinformation too. Mine was a shirt and tie event, and I did not know that. I show up in jeans and like a nice ironed button down t-shirt.
Sure. Yeah.
So I had just come back from Ireland, literally just come back from Ireland.
Yeah.
So I did my whole Ireland chunk. It's 5 or 8 minutes. It's fucking dying. This is a St. Patty's show. People are wearing green. I'm doing Ireland material, and I'm fucking bombing. So I did the very unprofessional thing of bailing early, but I did the smartest thing by bailing early. Nobody's interested. Nobody cares. I'm bombing. This is torture for me. It's torture for them. Why keep going? So I'm supposed to do 45, and I bailed at 27. I ran to the bar, literally, because the bar was in a separate room. I just wanted to get away from that crowd.
Sure.
And then a guy I know who was in the crowd was like, I'm so sorry, man. It's like that every time. And I'm like, why do you book comics?
Yeah,
why do you book comics?
Is this happening? Yeah, there's no because like if you're at a club, if you're doing a club and you bail on your time, even if it's a bad crowd, you should be able to figure it out. But in a situation like that, they don't want you there. You don't want to be there. Just give me my money and let me.
You're on their turf. It's off premise. I feel like when you do something on somebody else's grounds, the rules don't always apply 100%.
Yeah. What I want to do, I should have, if I had more money, I would have just taken the entire $1,000 to just donate it to like a British charity just to piss him off. That's what I should have done.
Reebok, here's some more money. All right, dude. Thank you so much. I didn't know we had a nightmare story for the same organization.
I know that's
kind
amazing.
Of funny.
Yeah,
that's what this podcast is about. All right, real quick, we're gonna wrap it up here, but plug your social media and plug what you got coming up.
As far as dates, I just got like some dates here and there. But follow me at Chip Chantry, ChipChantry, on Twitter and Instagram, and you'll find all my shows there. You can go to chipchantry.com. I have 2 albums out that you can find wherever you get your comedy albums. Listen to those. I'd really appreciate that. And I got a couple podcasts, if you don't mind me.
Absolutely.
My podcast. I have Junk Miles with Chip and Jeff, which is we talk about 80s movies now. That's like our big thing. I have a podcast with Ken Krantz called I Love Rock and Roll, which you've been a guest on a few times, where we just
three
times, where we take different rock like bands or artists, we talk about them. And then my most recent podcast, and yes, I got 3 of them. Jesus God, you guys must hate me. I have 3 of them. I have A Dangerous Thing. It's called A Dangerous Thing with James Heskey, hilarious comic friend of ours. And each week we pick a different theme and we choose a topic on that theme and we teach that topic to each other and the listener. So I've done everything from the Hatfields and McCoys, Max Headroom, the Nation of Canada, just like the goofiest shit in the world. The
electric chair.
I might have to do that sometime.
I think
soon,
you should
get on the other side of that.
See, that's an hour callback, an hour later.
I love it, buddy. I love it.
Right.
But dude, thank you so much for having me, man.
Dude, thank you so much. And
so
see, you're one of like my worst offenders here. Like, and by that I mean like you and I could just talk for hours. Like we didn't even hit the tip of the iceberg with the way you and I can break this down all day. But we are we covered a solid hour. I got your story from the beginning. We ran some shit by each other, and that's all I wanted, man. Thank you very much.
Hard day's work, buddy. Good luck with your tire.
Thank you.